At exactly 3:15 a.m., on an icy Tuesday morning in January 2020, deep inside the shadowy library of Frogmore Cottage, one moment of trust quietly destroyed the life Prince Harry had always known. As the world remained asleep, completely unaware that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were preparing to walk away from the royal family, Harry sat alone at a mahogany desk with a 48-page legal agreement laid out in front of him. His hands trembled faintly from exhaustion and the overwhelming pressure of the tense negotiations that had unfolded all week at Sandringham. Slowly, he lifted a fountain pen filled with royal blue ink and signed the final page. In his mind, he was approving a declaration of freedom, passport to a private new life in California. But according to renowned investigative author Tom Bower, whose bombshell discoveries are sending shockwaves around the world this morning, May 9th, 2026, Harry may actually have been signing his own financial and professional downfall. Before we uncover the disturbing details revealed by Tom Bower, take a quick moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are following every update to this breaking story in real time, and your support allows us to continue uncovering these hidden truths. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Harry was deliberately deceived? Or was this simply a devastating mistake? Tom Bower has spent years dissecting the Sussex Empire, but his newest report, released only hours ago, centers around one critical detail. Page 14, Clause 7, Section B. According to Bower, this is the heart of the entire controversy. Although the document was described to Harry as a routine revision connected to security arrangements and intellectual property management, during their transition to North America, the wording hidden inside those 48 pages was far from ordinary. Sources connected to the internal archives of the Sussex Legal Office, along with findings from independent 2025 audit reports, allegedly show that this single clause transferred primary ownership of all future intellectual property linked to their shared brand into a network of private entities controlled exclusively by Meghan. The alleged conversation from that night is deeply unsettling. A former palace staff member, who claims to have been inside Frogmore Cottage during those final hours, says Meghan stood beside Harry as he reviewed the paperwork. When Harry reportedly paused near the final pages and suggested waiting for his personal UK lawyers to complete one final review, Meghan allegedly leaned in and quietly said, "It is only a standard revision for security and brand protection. H, we need this signed before we board that plane. I already worked everything out with the California legal team. Don't you trust me?" Emotionally exhausted and desperate to escape the relentless scrutiny of the British media, Harry allegedly answered with only 3 words, "I trust you." Then he signed the document. What he did not realize, according to Bower, was that page 14 allegedly contained a carefully designed legal mechanism waiting to activate the moment they arrived in America. Tom Bower describes the arrangement as a forward ownership capture system. Put simply, it means that even if the marriage were to collapse or Harry eventually returned to Britain, the rights connected to his personal story, memoirs, and even the commercial use of his royal identity would remain legally tied to Meghan's corporate entities based in Delaware. Bower's claims are reportedly reinforced by an independent financial audit from 2025 that uncovered major irregularities in the way revenue from Netflix and Spotify deals had been distributed. While the public saw the image of an equal partnership, financial records allegedly indicate that the moment Harry signed the agreement at 3:15 a.m. inside Frogmore Cottage, he effectively surrendered his role as an equal stakeholder. Internal records obtained by Bower's investigative team allegedly show conversations involving offshore structures and tax-protected corporate entities beginning during this period. The purpose, according to the report, was to establish a secondary financial network operating independently from the oversight of the royal household. By January 2020, tensions reached their peak during the now famous Sandringham summit. Harry was reportedly overwhelmed, facing conflict with his family, public scrutiny, and the loss of military honors that had defined much of his identity. According to Tom Bower, this vulnerable moment became the perfect opening for the amendment to be presented to him. Bower refers to the situation as the Sandringham pincer movement, Harry was allegedly convinced that signing the document was necessary protection against the British press and the institution itself. Under pressure and emotionally exhausted, he signed allegedly without realizing he was surrendering long-term control over his own financial future. The operation then entered what Bauer calls its accumulation phase in June 2022. While the public watched the couple appear together during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, several single-member LLC were quietly registered in California solely under Meghan's name. According to financial analysts cited in the report, these companies acted as protective barriers for incoming revenue. As millions from Netflix and Spotify deals reportedly flowed in, substantial portions of that money were allegedly redirected into these independently controlled entities rather than remaining within a shared Sussex financial structure. Then, according to Bauer's dossier, the final stage quietly began in January 2026. Meghan allegedly rehired Sunshine Sachs in Los Angeles, the same high-profile firm first connected to her back in 2016. In elite celebrity circles, insiders reportedly view this kind of move as a silent warning signal. A sign that the public narrative surrounding a potential separation is being carefully prepared long before any legal filing appears in court. And now, as of this morning, May 9th, 2026, Bauer claims the full reality of this decade-long structure is finally crashing down on Harry. According to the investigation, he is beginning to realize that the threat is not only personal or emotional, it is legal and financial. The allegation is that even the commercial rights connected to his own identity and life story may now sit inside corporate systems outside of his direct control. That leads to the next major question. How exactly did the money move through these hidden structures, and where did it ultimately go? According to Tom Bauer's latest dossier released this morning, the answer may finally explain how a prince, once believed to possess immense wealth, could allegedly find himself facing financial instability, while an independent corporate empire around him continued expanding. Legal experts cited in the report described the mechanism as a forward-looking intellectual property claim, sophisticated financial structure allegedly designed so carefully that Harry may never have realized the restrictions tightening around him until escape was no longer possible. The process reportedly began with step 1, identity capture. According to Bauer, the agreement signed at Frogmore Cottage went far beyond dividing existing. Buried within the wording was a clause allegedly stating that any future venture tied to royal heritage, family legacy, or ancestral storytelling, whether books, documentaries, interviews, or podcasts, would automatically become property connected to a central management structure. And according to Tom Bauer, this management entity was not equally controlled. He claims the controlling interest belonged solely to Meghan through a privately managed corporate vehicle. A source connected to the Sussex legal network allegedly described one particularly chilling moment during the drafting of the clause. According to the source, one consultant directly asked how Harry himself would benefit from the arrangement. The response reportedly delivered by the California legal team was blunt. The Duke is the content. The Duchess is the architect. And the architect owns the building. In practical terms, this would mean that every interview, memoir, documentary, or speech Harry gives about his mother, his father, or his years inside the royal institution generates revenue flowing through systems he allegedly does not control himself. Step 2 in the structure is what Bauer describes as the A Delaware shell game. Publicly, the Archwell brand presents itself as a united partnership, but according to the 2025 financial audit examined in Bauer's investigation, the movement of money allegedly tells a very different story. When multi-million-dollar payments from major streaming platforms arrived, the funds were first placed into shared accounts, preserving the public image of equality. Yet, according to the financial records cited in the report, within less than 48 hours, substantial management fees were allegedly redirected into a network of single-member LLC registered in Delaware under Meghan's control alone. Under California community property law, these entities can reportedly be treated differently if the transferred income is categorized as consulting compensation rather than marital property. According to Bauer, by the time Harry reviewed the visible balances inside the shared accounts, much of the revenue had already been moved into corporate structures operating as legal blind spots, inaccessible to him. Then comes step 3, the portion Bauer's report describes as the most damaging of all, the debt allocation strategy. For years, Harry has pursued expensive legal battles against sections of the British press, believing he was fighting for justice and personal accountability. But Tom Bauer's newest findings suggest those lawsuits may have served a second financial purpose behind the scenes. Internal accounting records allegedly categorized the enormous legal expenses as Harry's personal liabilities rather than shared marital obligations. In California divorce proceedings, the distinction between personal debt and marital debt can dramatically reshape the outcome of a settlement. According to Bauer, encouraging Harry to continue these costly legal wars effectively ensured that the financial burden, reportedly estimated at more than $20 million, could ultimately remain attached to him alone. The result, according to the investigation, is financially devastating. As of May 9th, 2026, the legal and corporate framework appears fully constructed. If the marriage were ever to collapse, Harry could allegedly walk away carrying the full weight of those legal obligations, while the rights connected to the Sussex brand and the future profits tied to his own royal narrative remain protected inside privately controlled corporate entities. According to Bauer, Harry did not simply sign a legal agreement. He may have unknowingly surrendered the ability to fully profit from his own life story, but as daylight breaks over California this morning, another disturbing question is beginning to surface. Did others know this strategy was unfolding behind the scenes? And was there a precise moment when the final trap was quietly activated? What gives Tom Bauer's investigation its unsettling weight is not broad speculation, but the level of detailed specifics attached to the timeline. One of the most haunting revelations emerging this morning involves a late November evening in 2020. According to internal sources cited in the report, at exactly 11 Tayo. While the Montecito estate sat silent, Meghan was allegedly inside her private ocean view study participating in a 90-minute strategic phone call. On the other end, Bauer claims was one of Hollywood's most feared divorce strategists, an attorney famous not for explosive courtroom battles, but for engineering invisible exits where one spouse is legally cornered before realizing the process has even begun. Bauer purportedly uses this detail to anchor the timeline in reality. Publicly, the Sussexes were still seen in late 2020 as newly liberated royals building their dream American future together. Yet, according to the paper trail referenced in the dossier, preparations for a financially independent solo structure were already accelerating rapidly behind closed doors. To support this claim, the report allegedly references tax identification filings tied to American Riviera Orchard and multiple associated holding companies. Examination of the AIN registration records reportedly reveals a striking shift. Earlier business ventures connected to the Sussex brand were structured under joint trust arrangements, while these newer entities were allegedly organized under independent corporate ownership structures that excluded Harry entirely. One financial employee involved in processing the paperwork reportedly commented on how unusual it was to see such a heavily one-sided ownership arrangement established so early for a public celebrity partnership. The report gains even more attention because of the Hollywood comparison Bauer introduces. According to the investigation, consultants connected to the famous 2012 separation between Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise were allegedly also consulted during the Sussex situation. That divorce became widely known for its precision and secrecy, with Holmes reportedly securing both independence and protection for her daughter before crews fully realized what was unfolding. According to Bauer, the similarities are impossible to ignore. The alleged strategy being applied to Harry, he claims, follows the same stealth-based approach. The public-facing relationship remains polished and united, while the underlying legal framework quietly prepares for separation long before any public signs appear. And according to legal analysts cited in the report, California law may be exactly what makes this system so effective. This is where the concept of the architect versus the asset allegedly becomes the centerpiece of the entire mechanism. Under California's increasingly complex family law system, courts are now placing heavy emphasis on one critical question: who actually built the commercial value of a brand? In this alleged scenario, Harry is categorized as the asset, the source of royal bloodline, global recognition, and an inherited prestige. But according to Tom Bauer's findings, Meghan strategically positioned herself as the architect, the individual responsible for filing trademarks, assembling teams, managing public relations firms, and negotiating the business deal. Bauer's investigation suggests that in any future legal battle over assets, Meghan's attorneys would argue that while Harry supplied the raw material of royalty, it was Meghan's planning, labor, and long-term vision that transformed that status into a profitable commercial empire. Under California law, the architect of a business structure can sometimes hold a stronger legal claim to the management and future earnings of the enterprise than the person whose fame originally fueled it. As analysts review the documents released today, the frightening implication for Harry is becoming increasingly clear. He may have spent years believing he was a co-owner of the Sussex empire while legally functioning as little more than a tenant inside it. And as reports surrounding that alleged 11 p.m. strategy call continue spreading through palace corridors and Los Angeles boardrooms alike, the debate is shifting dramatically. The question is no longer whether Harry risks losing control, but rather how much of his own identity he may still possess once the process reaches its conclusion. The scenarios now being discussed privately suggest consequences that few people, including Harry himself, appear fully prepared to confront. As the world absorbs the explosive revelations published by Tom Bauer this morning, May 9th, 2026, attention has rapidly moved beyond how this structure was built and toward what happens next. Legal observers are now examining what insiders reportedly call a scenario tree, a map of possible futures facing Prince Harry. But according to Bauer's analysis, as the alleged page 14 mechanism becomes clearer, the possibility of a smooth or graceful escape is fading quickly. Tom Bauer reportedly outlines 3 potential outcomes, though only one is viewed by analysts as truly likely, and that scenario paints a deeply unsettling picture of complete personal and professional collapse. The first branch is the fantasy scenario embraced by many royal loyalists. In this version, Harry fully realizes the scale of the legal structures surrounding him and returns permanently to Britain, hoping to seek protection from King Charles III and the institutional power of monarchy itself. Supporters of this theory believe royal lawyers could somehow invalidate the California agreements entirely, but according to Bauer, the probability of this happening is only around 5%. The reason is brutally simple. These agreements are not royal decrees governed by palace authority. They are private international business contracts operating under California commercial law. One senior London barrister reportedly summarized it bluntly. The king may bestow a title, but he cannot erase a signed corporate agreement filed in California. In practical terms, Harry could theoretically return home as a prince, while remaining financially trapped on paper, unable to monetize his own identity, without facing litigation from the very corporate structures tied to the Sussex brand. The second path is what insiders allegedly call the compromise scenario, or more privately, the ransom route. Under this outcome, Harry would attempt to negotiate his freedom by purchasing back control over his own name, image, and historical narrative. According to estimates cited by Bauer, such a settlement could climb into the hundreds of millions of dollars. He reportedly places the likelihood of this scenario at around 25%. But, once again, the mathematics become devastating. If Harry is already carrying tens of millions in personal legal liabilities, while his key assets remain trapped inside independently controlled LLC, he may lack the liquidity needed to fund such a settlement. To escape, he would potentially need to borrow heavily against his future earnings, effectively placing himself in lifelong debt merely to reclaim ownership over his own royal identity. That leaves the third branch, the outcome Tom Bauer allegedly believes is the most realistic of all, total dissolution. Based on the timeline connected to the rehiring of Sunshine Sachs, the prediction within the report is that divorce proceedings could begin before July 2026. And according to this scenario, the collapse would be executed with extraordinary precision. Harry would not only lose control over the brand itself, he could also face devastating custody consequences. Bauer's sources reportedly claim that every solo trip Harry has taken to London for legal hearings, along with every international Invictus appearance over the past several years, has been quietly documented not as public service, but as evidence of prolonged parental absence. In a California custody dispute, the report suggests Meghan's legal team could present a carefully constructed contrast, a stable, consistently present mother against a globally traveling father portrayed as emotionally unstable and frequently absent. Meanwhile, Meghan would allegedly emerge from the separation stronger than ever, transformed into the next evolution of the modern celebrity, mogul. A Goop 2.0 figure empowered by the prestige and marketability of a royal identity, now embedded within corporate ownership structures. Harry, by contrast, would allegedly be left isolated, disconnected not only from the monarchy, but from the commercial empire built around his own life story. Perhaps the most haunting line in Bauer's report summarizes the situation best. Meghan is not playing chess. She's executing corporate dissolution. This is not simply the ending of a marriage. It is the liquidation of a partner whose usefulness has expired. And now, as the silence before the storm settles across both California and London, on this May morning, only one question appears to remain. Is there any overlooked detail hidden somewhere within the paperwork that could still stop the machinery from moving forward? Whispers are beginning to circulate about one final piece of evidence, something reportedly so small and seemingly insignificant that almost everyone ignored it, except Tom Bauer himself. As of this morning, May 9th, 2026, the atmosphere surrounding the case has shifted dramatically. What once seemed speculative now appears, at least to some analysts, mathematically unavoidable. The total dissolution scenario no longer feels hypothetical. It feels imminent. The legal mechanisms are allegedly already in place, the offshore structures secured, and the carefully engineered timeline appears to have reached its final phase. But in the final pages of Tom Bauer's newest investigation, he hints that the architect behind this entire structure may have missed one tiny, yet potentially devastating flaw. In high-stakes legal warfare, even the most sophisticated contract is worthless if the person signing it lacked the legal capacity to fully understand what they were agreeing to. And according to Bauer, it is this single issue, hidden inside a medical record, that could suddenly bring the entire Sussex framework crashing down. Bauer claims the potential loophole does not exist within the wording of the agreement itself, but within Prince Harry's physical and mental condition at exactly 3:15 a.m. On the night the document was signed, inside Frogmore Cottage. Under California law, especially in cases involving major amendments to prenuptial agreements, a signature is only enforceable if the signer is considered mentally competent, acting voluntarily, and free from coercion, exhaustion, or chemical impairment. Through interviews conducted with former household staff members who have allegedly spoken under whistleblower protections, a disturbing picture of that evening is now beginning to emerge. One former aide reportedly described the atmosphere inside Frogmore Cottage as deeply and according to these accounts, Harry had supposedly been awake for more than 36 consecutive hours while enduring the intense emotional pressure surrounding the mega-set negotiations. By every description, he was allegedly physically and emotionally exhausted. Beyond normal limits. But the detail now triggering alarm within legal circles is far smaller and far more ominous. Witnesses reportedly described a silver tray being brought into the library only minutes before the 48-page agreement was presented to Harry for signature. Now, according to Bauer, one haunting question is echoing across Los Angeles legal circles. What exactly did Harry consume before signing the document? And perhaps even more importantly, who prepared it and placed it in front of him. Bauer's investigation allegedly uncovered a specific anomaly recorded within a private medical log. From that same period, a detail he claims could indicate Harry was under the influence of either a strong sedative or a particular combination of medications severe enough to legally invalidate his consent during the signing process.